SCP-7741 Détente. Object Class Pending. Special Containment Procedures. Documentation from Pentagram sources. Footnote 1. Codename for the United States Paranatural Warfare Command, the Occult Combatant Command of the Department of Defense. Indicate that ionizing radiation, such as that originating from nuclear weapons, X-ray emitting devices, and radioactive waste, is the only effective means of subduing SCP-7741 for prolonged periods. Reconnaissance imagery suggests that the United States has made extensive use of all three methods. The Foundation's efforts to secure and contain SCP-7741 for research have been violently and consistently hindered by United States military assets in the Pacific region. The Foundation will continue efforts to conduct aerial reconnaissance of the Runit Dome, and will explore the potential of deploying a ground team via submarine for collection of soil samples. Update. Due to the potential for extensive loss of materials and personnel, direct containment efforts have been halted as of August 16, 1964. Stationary Task Force Columbia 1, Novus Ordo. Footnote 2. A stationary task force charged with monitoring electronic and signal intelligence on U.S. government devices, primarily in and around Washington, D.C. Will continue to monitor U.S. government devices to collect electronic intelligence, ELINT, imagery intelligence, IMINT, and signal intelligence, SIGINT, potentially referring to SCP-7741 from their safe house in Fairfax, Virginia. Description: SCP-7741 refers to the entity currently stored within the Runit Dome, located on the Eniwetok Atoll of the Marshall Islands. Foundation aerial reconnaissance after the initial discovery of SCP-7741 has revealed little due to obstruction of imaging systems via smoke, blinding light due to nuclear detonations, and deliberate destruction of reconnaissance aircraft through military means. Imagery and footage that does exist is often grainy, damaged, and difficult to analyze. The few eyewitness descriptions that exist come from veil clearance documents recovered from Pentagram electronic documentation via monitoring and breaching of U.S. government devices and communications. The eyewitnesses' accounts, cross-referenced with the imagery that the Foundation does possess, indicate that SCP-7741 is amphibious, capable of sustained low-altitude flight, and resistant to most forms of mundane ballistic weaponry, most especially that from small arms. Analysis of still imagery that the Foundation does possess places SCP-7741 at approximately 76 meters in height, although length and wingspan are currently too difficult to determine based on available imagery and eyewitness accounts. The body shape and color of SCP-7741 closely resembles that of a long-tailed clawed salamander. It is likely that SCP-7741 remains dormant for extended periods of time once its caloric intake demands are met. Whether SCP-7741 meets its caloric demands via ionizing radiation cannot be corroborated at this time. However, it is currently hypothesized that this is the reason SCP-7741 remains dormant under U.S. government containment. As of April 3, 1990, no clear imagery or footage of SCP-7741 has been recovered from SCP Foundation aerial reconnaissance or United States government sources. Efforts to secure a more reliable physical description or image of SCP-7741 are currently ongoing. Discovery. Evidence of the existence of SCP-7741 was discovered on May 13, 1958, one day after the fur and butternut barge tests during Operation Hardtack 1. The Foundation had been monitoring radio traffic originating from the Pacific Proving Grounds since the start of the nuclear weapons tests on April 28th. Approximately 19 hours after the detonation of Fur and Butternut, intercepted radio traffic referenced a massive unidentified creature moving below the surface of the ocean. Shortly after, radio traffic between observers and military personnel on the ground erupted into panic as the creature had shot out of the goddamn ocean like a missile, according to an unnamed observer. Pentagram documentation indicates military personnel present at the time of its surfacing began engaging SCP-7741 with small arms fire, anti-aircraft weapons, and naval artillery for several hours. At 0630, shortly following sunrise on May 13th, military personnel engaged SCP-7741 with the Koa nuclear weapon as it made landfall on the island of Drydrobwij. Pentagram documentation indicates that following the detonation of the 1.37 megaton nuclear weapon, SCP-7741 retreated into the ocean. The detonation of the Koa device had caused the complete destruction of the island. On the morning of May 14th, the Foundation authorized the dispatch of a single, unmarked DHC-3 Otter, purchased from the Indian Air Force and launched from a makeshift airfield in Micronesia. At approximately 1330 hours, the crew of the DHC-3 was able to capture a still image of a silhouette under the Pacific Ocean near the coast of the Arno Atoll, as well as several images of U.S. naval vessels staged around SCP-7741. At 1335 hours, the crew of the DHC-3 reported flak detonations near the aircraft. Contact with the aircraft was lost less than 1 minute following this report. At approximately 2130 hours the same day, May 14th, a recovery team from Mobile Task Force Theta 5, the bigger boat, arrived at the estimated crash location to secure the DHC-3's black box, crew, and film roll under the guise of a civilian fishing vessel. After 1 hour, the team was forced to retreat with only the film roll following interdiction by U.S. naval vessels. The after-action report of the Theta 5 recovery team, as well as other expedition logs, eyewitness statements, and pentagram documentation can be found below. Physical copies of all documents are available upon formal request to Site RISA Liaison. Addendum 7741-1 After Action Report May 15, 1958. The following is a transcript taken from an audio tape. Theta 5 Team Leader Martin Spencer. Interviewer Dr. Albert Lewan. Dr. Albert Lewan. Recording is started. This is Dr. Albert Lewan on behalf of the Administration Department. Please state your name and position for the record, sir. Martin Spencer. Martin Spencer, Theta 5 Team Leader. Forgive me if I'm a little slow today, I'm pretty exhausted. Mr. Spencer, I can understand why you're likely a little tired after the week you've had. Feel free to stop whenever you need to take a break. Now, if you're ready, we'll get started. Shuffling of papers. Please walk me through what happened when your vessel arrived at the estimated location of the DHC-3 crash. Right. Well, we arrived under the cover of darkness around 9:30 p.m. I had my guys practice strict light discipline. Even a lit cigarette would get the Navy all over us for sure. I understand you could only actively search the site for an hour. Is this correct? It is. We're lucky we even had that much time to search. If you ask me, the American government had completely focused their efforts underwater, waiting for that monster to come back around. They let us listen to the American radio traffic when it first surfaced, you know. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous the entire time I was out there. Real horror movie stuff. I think the Navy was the least of our concerns. We're calling the monster SCP-7741 now. But anyway, the Navy was the least of your concerns until they eventually found your team poking around. Yeah, definitely gave us all a shock. Bright spotlight from H-34 Choctaw shining down on our ship. No doubt they had their guns pointed right at us from behind. Were you fired upon? Not initially, no. I think the civilian fishing vessel cover bought us a couple of seconds. We weren't exactly dressed the part, as you know. Wearing all that diving gear made us stick out. They fired some warning shots into the water around us, could have laid into us right then and there. I guess either they weren't too sure who we were, or whoever was behind the trigger was feeling merciful. Your team was armed, correct? Why not fire back? Because it would have been a death sentence. One helicopter would have turned into an entire fleet on top of us. We're lucky we made it back as it is. To be frank, I wasn't going to be the one to spark a flashpoint between us and the States, and I realize the nature of our work transcends ideology and all that, but firing on my own countrymen is a big ask. One of those Marines on that Choctaw could have been my brother or cousin. I understand. Thank you for your time, Mr. Spencer. We'll see about dispatching another team to recover the crew of the DHC-3, I'm sure. You're free to return to your quarters. End log. Addendum 7741-2. Recovered pentagram documentation. The following document is a close air support summary obtained from Department of Defense Occult Archives by STF Columbia 1, Novus Ordo. Veil clearance required to view. United States Marine Corps. Close air support summary. May 14, 1958. 22:30 hours. 1 H-34 Choctaw. 1 fishing vessel spotted idling just beyond danger zone and restricted area perimeter. Additional notes. Aircraft crew chief observed crew aboard fishing vessel operating underwater retrieval and diving equipment. Warning shots were fired, although firearms were not immediately observed. Upon shining a spotlight on the vessel, crew quickly retrieved equipment deployed underwater and immediately retreated from the area. While the vessel had no visible identifying flags or insignia, it is believed that the vessel may have been operated by a Soviet retrieval team. The following document is an internal memorandum obtained from Department of Defense Occult Archives by STF Columbia 1, Novus Ordo. Date: May 15, 1958. Memorandum 2, Neil H. McElroy, Secretary of Defense. From Justin Sullivan, Chief, Naval Operations for Para-Warcom. Subject: Recovery of downed aircraft near the Marshall Islands. Senator McElroy, concerning the situation in the Marshall Islands, we have recovered the aircraft shot down by our anti-aircraft defenses yesterday. Last night at approximately 22:30 hours, a United States Marine Corps helicopter chased away a fishing vessel snooping around in the area where the aircraft was recovered. Alongside the badly damaged DHC-3, we have recovered 2 bodies that have yet to be identified, water-damaged maps, and a black box flight recorder. This was not, as we initially thought, a Soviet attempt at reconnoitering our nuclear test site as initially believed. The black box is still being analyzed on site, and will be sent back to Washington soon, but what we have already recovered indicates that this aircraft likely belonged to the SCP Foundation. The vessel encountered by our Marines last night was likely a recovery team. Luckily, we beat them to the punch. 20 years ago, I would have advocated that we send the bodies back to them with a lengthy apology. After what happened at Woodvale, I'd argue that we send the bodies back piece by piece. I am formally recommending that we continue to pull personnel from JTF-7 and replace them with our own. Footnote 3. Joint Task Force 7 was a collaboration between the United States military and federal civilian employees from the Department of Defense and Atomic Energy Commission. If they want to play hardball, maybe we can see about deploying that weapon we used during Incheon. I hear our boys with the proper clearance in the Chemical Corps are working on an improvement they're calling Agent Black. The following document was recovered in its current state from Department of Defense Occult Archives by STF Columbia 1, Novus Ordo. Document recovered from Los Alamos Scientific Laboratory. Footnote 4. Los Alamos did not become a national laboratory in name until 1981. By 388th Independent Special Company First Lieutenant, name redacted. 1 week following the events at the Pacific Proving Grounds. Document contains 1 page. Day 2 stateside. We arrived at the laboratory in New Mexico just yesterday. If we weren't stressed out and confused enough, the suits from the Department of Defense aren't letting us go home. They held us up last night and now they're telling us they'll be keeping us here another night. They won't even let us phone our families or send them letters. We haven't even gotten any information about the creature that came out of the water. We likely could have gotten information from Dr. Collins, our marine biologist, but the suits took him away as soon as we returned from the Pacific. No one has seen him since. I like to think he was debriefed, asked about what it was, and sent home, but I just don't know. After Collins, it was Hughes, just this morning, and then Turner in the afternoon. I assume they're going in alphabetical order. The American government trusts us with nuclear secrets, so I can't imagine why they would not trust us with the information of what happened at the atoll. This page was found in the personal diary of Dr. Brian Wright, a nuclear physicist assigned to Operation Hardtack following an extensive search of the temporary living quarters. Page removed from diary and marked for archive. Note: Dr. Wright has been given a treatment of MK Abel. Footnote 5. MK Abel is believed to be an early attempt by the Pentagram to develop a drug similar in function to Foundation amnestics, relying mostly on LSD. Developed alongside and similar to the MK Ultra program. And will assume his regular duties after a month recovery period. Reference Department of Defense Occult Affairs 317. The following document was recovered in its current state from Central Intelligence Agency Directorate of Occult Operations Archives by STF Columbia 1, Novus Ordo, following the return of Sigma 9, Valkyries, Captain Adam Eckert. August 17, 1962. This document contains the transcript of the third interview of Foundation pilot A. Eckert. Transcripts of previous interviews are available upon request by relevant personnel, per Patrick McAvoy, CIA Director of Occult Operations. Interviewer: Officer L. Douglas. Detainee: Foundation Captain A. Eckert. Eckert: Please, I've already told you everything about what I was doing over Johnston. I don't know what else I can tell you. They'll probably turn my brains to mush once they find out what I've already said, or worse. Oh God. Eckert audibly sobs for approximately 23 seconds. Douglas: Calm down, Adam. You've already given us everything about your mission and more. You don't even remember, which means that Abel is more effective than we'd originally thought. Now, I'd like to talk more about what we discussed last week about that facility in Southeast Asia. I believe you said in Vietnam? Please. Intermittent sobbing continues. Please, I don't even remember what I've told you. I want to go home. You said that the Foundation had a facility near Saigon. Said you'd heard rumors that this place was constructed to keep an eye on the French and the government of South Vietnam, and that shuffling of paper can be heard for approximately 7 seconds. There was likely a second facility in the north doing the same. You're doing a great job, Adam, but we need more. Do you know the name of the task forces that are operating these facilities? How long they've been there? No, I don't. I don't know any more than what I've already told you. Please, I'm just tired and thirsty and want this to end. You can rest when we've gotten what we need out of you. Hit him with another dose. Mentions of a facility in Vietnam may refer to STF Outpost 112 and the incident that occurred there in 1965. Following the recovery of this document, CIA and/or Pentagram involvement in the aforementioned incident is being investigated. Addendum 7741-3 Communication Logs 1964 through 1990. 2. Admiral Justin Sullivan, Chief, Naval Operations for Para-Warcom. From Dr. Keith Schaefer, Director, Department of Anomalous Communications and Relations. Subject: Regarding operations in the Pacific Theater. Date: August 15th, 1964. Admiral, we are aware that with the passing of the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, the United States will be expanding its operations greatly in the Asia-Pacific region. Despite this, the Foundation will conduct its mission in the region normally, and threats, violence, and strong-arming that will more than likely be leveled towards us will not discourage us from performing our mission to secure, contain, and most importantly, protect all humanity, regardless of nationality or political ideology. Our mission transcends these insignificant concepts. Whether you decide to act with us or against us, we will continue our operations, regardless of the risk involved. The Foundation is still waiting for the United States to send us the bodies of the air crew mercilessly gunned down in 1958 by your air defenses, without warning or due cause. While the pilot of our twin Bonanza was returned in 1962, he showed clear signs of physical and mental torture, not to mention an alarming presence of experimental drugs in his system. Until an effort is made to return the bodies and personal effects of these men to the Foundation, or compensate us in some manner for this unacceptable loss of life and equipment, I do not wish to further discuss this topic with you or your people. Do not reply unless it is to concede to our demands. Sincerely, Keith Schaefer, Director, DACR. 2. Admiral Michael Lawler, Chief, Naval Operations for Para-Warcom. From Dr. Melissa Boris, Director, Department of Anomalous Communications and Relations. Subject: The Tomb and the Future of the Marshall Islands. Date: February 9th, 1986. Admiral, I understand that it has been some time since Washington has heard from the Foundation regarding this matter, but recent developments have forced us to break our silence. We are well aware that responsibility of the run at Dome is about to be passed off to the Marshall Islands government. Admiral, I'll be frank. You and I both know what is being held in that concrete dome, and it isn't just toxic waste. An island nation with a GDP that doesn't even come close to a single American state is not equipped to handle this responsibility. I implore you to speak to your leaders. The Foundation has the resources and determination to secure and maintain the dome and the creatures stored within. I'm sure I don't have to tell you the disaster that awaits us if a monsoon destroys the dome. We believe it is only a matter of time. Please, make the right decision. My predecessors have been less than friendly, and I apologize for disparaging language used in the past. I am hoping we can move past this dark chapter in our relations and move forward on friendly terms for the safety of all mankind. Regards, Melissa Boris, Director, DACR. 2. Dr. Melissa Boris, Director, Department of Anomalous Communications and Relations. From Admiral Michael Lawler, Chief, Naval Operations for Para-Warcom. Subject: The Tomb and the Future of the Marshall Islands. Date: February 19th, 1986. Dr. Boris, I appreciate you reaching out. I have no doubt you've written the Soviets regarding similar matters, with all this talk of glasnost. Despite my best efforts, Reagan is not going to budge. The United States Navy still feels that monitoring the run at Dome is in the best interest of national security. Any activity on the island, such as armed guards or construction equipment, would open a can of worms that nobody in Washington wants. The President has no desire to upset the balance struck by the 1982 Compact. We're still seeking to reparate many of the natives, and the efforts will be shattered if we start digging up skeletons of the past, literally and figuratively. Congress is discussing a payout to the Marshall Islands government. You couldn't have picked a worse time to press for this. On a more positive note, however, Washington has decided to return the bodies of your DHC-3 crew killed in 1958. We will arrange them to be flown to neutral ground where your people can retrieve them. Most of the folks in DC would prefer to keep those bodies as some kind of leverage. I know it's not everything you hope for, but even that took me some convincing. There isn't exactly much sympathy to go around these days, especially when we start talking about the Foundation. Sometimes it feels like a dirty word here in the Pentagon. Your people haven't left the greatest impression since scrambling your assets to non-aligned countries. Sincerely, Admiral Michael Lawler, Chief of Naval Operations, Paranatural Warfare Command. 2. Admiral Michael Lawler, Chief, Naval Operations for Para-Warcom. From Dr. Melissa Boris, Director, Department of Anomalous Communications and Relations. Subject: The Tomb and the Future of the Marshall Islands. Date: February 24th, 1986. I'm sorry to hear that Washington refuses to work with us, but I do appreciate your efforts to see that our dead can be returned to their home countries to receive a proper burial, even after all this time. Regardless, I can't understand why there's such a vested interest in the dome. What your people have housed, it's not as if something is being done to study it, or even weaponize it as far as we can tell. If the issue is avoiding causing a stir with the locals, everyone in the White House and the Pentagon is well aware that we can be discreet. I know Reagan won't budge, but we appreciate your attempts nonetheless. Getting our pilots home will go a long way with mending some of the sour opinions about your people around here, whether that was the intention or not. I'd like to say I'll be in touch, but you and I both know it would be a waste of time to press the issue. Maybe one day we can come to an agreement, but I imagine the Soviets would sooner disarm their nuclear arsenal. Regardless, one can hope. Regards, Melissa Boris, Director, DACR. 2. Dr. Melissa Boris, Director, Department of Anomalous Communications and Relations. From General Simon P. Grant, Commander, Paranatural Warfare Command. Subject: Moving forward. Date: April 3rd, 1990. Greetings, Doctor. I understand my writing to you may come as a bit of a shock. As you and the rest of the world are aware, communism has been all but defeated in Germany. For the first time since 1961, the people of Berlin are free to travel as they please. We are well on the way to reunification, and for the first time in a long time, I feel that true peace can be achieved. As such, I would like to revisit the long-standing issue of the run at Dome that has stood in the way of diplomacy between our organizations for decades, amongst other things. As I'm sure you understand, the situation on the Marshall Islands is a delicate one. We mustn't upset the fragile state of the Compact of Free Association between the United States and the Republic of the Marshall Islands. In a few weeks, the Department of Energy will be present on the Ronnet Islands to collect sediment samples and test radiation levels. I would like scientists from the Foundation to be present alongside the Department of Energy team. There will no doubt be a laundry list of rules and regulations to follow, and I'm sure your people won't be allowed to get too close to the dome itself. But this is at least something to ease the obvious tension between us. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union feels like it's finally winding down, if only a little. Let's see if we can work to end the one going on between us. Please, reach out to my office if you have any questions. Sincerely, General Simon P. Grant, Commander, Paranatural Warfare Command. Thank you for listening to SCP-7741, Détente, by Napalm Doctor 556. If you enjoyed this SCP, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Also, make sure to follow the link in the description to the SCP Wiki and vote up the article to support the author and the SCP Wiki as a whole.